Alright, Booktube Newbie Tag. Let's go. I've got my questions and we'll just see how this goes. So, question number 1. Why did you start this channel? That's actually a really good question. I do sometimes wonder. I've been enjoying watching Booktube on and off for a while now, but got into it a lot more this year. And then, I don't know, was it a couple of months ago now? There was a live on Peace Love Books channel. I didn't watch it live because I'm in the UK and so the time on these things is always horrific. But I watched it back and it was all about starting Booktube and kind of the things around that, and it just sounded amazing. But as these things go, it took me a little while to actually get around to doing it. But here we are. Just giving it a go and challenging myself in a new way. Question 2, what are some fun and unique things that you can bring to Booktube? So I think everyone brings something new just by the fact that they're a different person. They read different books, they have different thoughts and different life experiences to bring to those books. I'm not someone who can read 20-30 books in a month. I think the most I've read in a month this year is 14, but 10 is a fairly average, which is still quite a lot to be fair. So I am really picky about what I read. I know what sort of things that I like, and I think that, yeah, it's just nice to have a different take on these things and the different experiences from there. So number 3, what are you excited for about this channel? So I'm excited for a couple of things. I'm excited for challenging myself in a new way, creatively. And also I'm excited to meet new people. So I have been doing Bookstagram for just over 2 years now. And I have met the best people. I've not met any in person yet. Hopefully that will be happening. Not too distant future. But they are just fantastic people. And I love having people that you can just talk books with, that you can go to for recommendations, you can share your excitement, and I'm hoping to find another community of that here on this channel. Number 4 is, why do you love reading? I mean, why not? Most of all, I like that it's me time. There's a lot going on. Obviously, you know, there's work things. I have a family, so a husband and 2 kids, and you know, all the general things that come with adult life as well. But when I read, it's just sitting down and it's time that is undeniably mine, that I can go into worlds that I want to go into, or, you know, experience other people's lives and just take that time to be me and switch off. So question 5, what book or series got you into reading? It depends when. I could tell you when I was a kid I read all like the Horrible Histories books and all sorts of random books. I just remember all the Horrible Histories lined up on my shelf, so they kind of stay out. As a teenager I read the entire Animorphs series, all like 54, something like that, of those books. And then I got back into reading at uni, and it was the Dithwell books by Terry Pratchett that I actually first got into because of my friend who was reading them when I hadn't been reading for a while, and I started reading over her shoulder and kind of went from there. So yeah, it sort of depends when, but there's a lot of different books that I would say have shaped my reading journey along the line. So question 6 is, what questions would you ask your favourite booktubers? I guess the first thing would probably be, do you ever feel really awkward talking to your camera or phone, or do you just get used to that after a while? But honestly, I feel like if I did have questions I would feel happy to ask them, because they're all people who are really open to messages. And I know have helped out a lot of other people with their channels, so I feel like I could just ask them if I needed to, if I wasn't too shy to. That's always the problem. So question 7 is, what challenges with starting a booktube channel will be the hardest to overcome? And for me, there are 2 main ones. Firstly is my self-confidence. I'm not the most confident person. I find it absolutely cringeworthy to listen to recordings of myself, so editing my first couple of videos has definitely challenged me in new ways. But I think it's a really good sort of challenge because I'm putting myself out and just going for it. Just taking the time to be comfortable with who I am, not trying to be anything else. And then the other one that will be the hardest is time. I was going to film this 3 days ago and it just didn't happen. Life got in the way. So I'm hoping that that's going to be something that gets easier. I know with Bookstagram, I used to find it really hard to take the time to set up a photo and take that. But after a while, I've got a lot better at planning roughly what I'm going to do and just knocking things out fairly quickly. So fingers crossed. That's the same with this. So question 8 is, when did you start reading? So kind of mentioned this before, but I don't really remember not reading. However, there was a time kind of as late teens where I sort of stopped reading for a little bit and then did get back into it at uni, like I mentioned, with my friend who was reading quite a lot. But until about 3 years ago, I was reading as an adult maybe 25-30 books a year, which, to be fair, I was pretty happy with. I was pretty impressive. And then lockdown happened in 2020, and a lot of lack of sleep happened, but also taking time for myself became so important with everyone at home, with everything being a bit more intense. At the same time, I discovered some absolutely amazing authors, and so that was the year that I went from reading 25-30 books a year to 100 plus books a year. So I've kind of had different levels depending on when you count as, you know, actually starting reading. Question number 9 is, where do you read? So most of the time I read in bed. That's pure practicalities. When I go to bed is when I know I'm going to actually have time to myself most of the time, except when one of the kids wakes up, but you know, that happens. And sometimes during the day if I need to shut myself away, that makes sense too. But I really love reading on the sofa, particularly curled up with my favourite blanket. That just makes me so happy, so cozy. But that is obviously reliant on everyone else in the house being happy for me to read. But yeah, those are my favourites. Question number 10, what kind of books do you like to read? Paranormal romance is definitely high up there. So yeah, pretty much anything paranormal romance. I'm there. I'm reading some of the long series, been working my way through. Similarly with some of the urban fantasy series that sort of border on paranormal romance, love those. Pretty much anything else romance, I'm prepared to give a go. A fair few contemporaries go in there, some fantasy romance. The very occasional historical, but not as many. And another thing that is quite a focus for me is sapphic books, so FF romances. I kind of made a conscious decision at the start of last year to make sure I'm reading them every single month because it's something that just wasn't represented in my reading at all. And I absolutely love them. I'm still struggling to find quite as many as I like in paranormal romance, but I'm getting there. We have got a few shifters. But yeah, basically, if it's got shifters or vampires, I'm very happy. So it's all good. Turns out reading animals as a teenager was a bit of a sign of what was to come. And the final question, number 11, is, what does your book collection look like? It kind of looks like this, to be fair. Actually, not all of it. These books down here are my husband's. So my husband and I share our shelves. They do go around the corner. His section is more sci-fi, fantasy, and his fantasy is more like the grimdark end of fantasy, not the Sarah J Maas end of fantasy that mine is. Pretty much, well, it's entirely paperbacks. I don't buy hardbacks. at all. If a book is only available in hardback, I am either getting it as an ebook or borrowing it from the library until the paperback is available. I also love mass markets, which I know isn't necessarily always a popular thing, but I just love them. They've usually got nice bright covers, they're really easy to read, particularly if you've got small hands. Downside is in the UK, you can't buy a lot of the mass markets, particularly for paranormals, so I have to buy them from eBay, which is a bit of a pain, or some other sort of seller to get them in from the US. But yeah, and there is literally one special edition that I have on my shelves, and that is the House in the Cerulean Sea, and that is only because it was cheaper to buy the sprayed edge version from Waterstones than it was to buy the normal one. So yeah, I'm not massively into special editions. It's all about the books for me. But I do have quite a few on my shelves that I initially read on Kindle, particularly Kindle Unlimited, and then have got a physical copy just because I like to hug it and include it in photos and things like that. But yeah, my book collection makes me very, very happy. Alright, so that's all the questions. I hope that you've enjoyed finding something out about me. Let me know if we have anything in common, or if you have got any tips for finding a community of friends here on Booktube, and I will see you soon.